The mess hall still buzzes with the low roar of evening chow as Carter stands frozen by. What he has done, his hands still tingling from the strike he delivered moments earlier. The room is heavy with the kind of silence that hides beneath noise. The sort that sneaks into the cracks of conversation and makes every recruit glance sideways. Hale rises slowly, her expression unreadable. Her posture steady, her eyes focused on something far away, as if seeing more than the dull metal walls around. Before anyone can speak, she turns and walks out of the hall, leaving Carter with a growing weight in his chest and the uneasy stares of everyone who witnessed the exchange. Carter tells himself it was nothing, just a flare of temper after a long day of drills, but deep down he knows it was more than that. Something about Hale had always unsettled him, not because she was weak or timid, but because she carried an aura of quiet resolve that felt sharper than a blade the few times she spoke. Her voice was low and even never showing the strain the rest of them felt during training. It was as if she lived in a world governed by different rules. As Carter steps away from the table, he notices the way conversations restart only when he is out of earshot. The recruits whisper, but not loudly enough for him to catch the words. He heads toward the barracks, his boots striking the concrete floor in a rhythm that reminds him of the pounding in his chest. The corridor lights flicker with a faint hum, and he wonders if the power grid is failing again. The base has been unpredictable lately. Systems glitching, lights dimming, alarms beeping at odd times. The brass blames old wiring, but the older sergeants whisper about drills hidden from the rest of them, drills meant for the kind of operatives who leave their rooms with no shadow behind them. Carter reaches his bunk and sits heavily on the mattress. His fists clench in his lap as he replays the moment in the mess hall. Hale, standing calmly, her gaze unwavering, her silence the most accusing response he could imagine. He tells himself he should apologize, but he feels a prickling at the back of his neck as if someone is watching him. He glances toward the far end of the barracks where a figure he does not recognize sits motionless in the dim light. The recruits assigned to this bay are familiar to him, all of them, except this one. The figure then rises and walks away without a word, leaving Carter unsettled and strangely colder than before. Night falls over the base like a heavy blanket, dulling the sounds of drills and shutting out the distant roar of the sea. Carter tries to sleep, but every time he closes his eyes, he sees Hale standing in the mess hall, staring at him with that unreadable calm. He tosses and turns until he can no longer stand it, and finally decides to take a walk, hoping the air will clear his head. The corridors are nearly empty at this hour, the overhead lights casting long shadows that stretch across the concrete floor. Carter makes his way toward the gym, but halfway there, he picks up footsteps behind him, soft, rhythmic, and too measured to be accidental. He slows, expecting the steps to pass, but they do not. They match his pace exactly. He does not turn around. Instead, he continues walking, his jaw tight, his mind racing. When he finally reaches the end of the corridor, he risks a glance over his shoulder, but sees nothing. The hallway is empty, yet the unease remains. He takes a deep breath and steps outside into the night air. The sky is overcast, the moon hidden behind thick clouds. The perimeter lights cast a pale glow across the lot, but even they seem dimmer than usual. He starts across the open space, but something shifts in the shadows to his left. Two figures break away from the darkness, walking with deliberate slowness. Their uniforms bear no insignia, and their faces carry no expression. Carter stops, unsure whether to challenge them or walk away. The figures do not speak, they simply watch him with a stillness that raises the hairs on his arms. He waits for them to say something, but instead they turn and vanish around the corner, leaving him with more questions than before. He feels a sudden pressure in his chest, the same sensation he felt earlier in the mess hall just before Hale walked out. He decides to find Sergeant Keller, the one person on base who might know why these strange things are happening. Keller is strict but honest, and Carter Trusts him more than most, he heads toward the administrative wing, where Keller usually works late, but when he arrives, the office lights are already off. A folder sits on the desk with pages scattered as if someone left in a hurry. Carter steps inside, calling out softly, but no voice answers. Sudden memory strikes him. Hale leaving the mess hall without a single word, her file rumored to be sealed, her evaluations hidden from even senior officers. Carter has heard whispers that she completed so. Hale has heard whispers that she completed courses not offered to regular recruits, courses designed for operatives working in the shadows. He has always dismissed it as base gossip, but the strange figures in the corridor and the empty office now feel connected to something larger. Something he is only beginning to understand. He moves deeper into the office space. He notices a small training log lying open on the desk. The entries are written in tight, controlled handwriting. All references to Hale are blacked out with heavy ink, thick enough to tear the paper beneath. Carter runs a hand over the page, feeling the grooves left by the strokes. Someone wanted her records erased, or at least hidden from anyone who might ask the wrong questions. He backs away from the desk, his heartbeat rising. He knows now that what happened in the mess hall was not a simple outburst. His action has drawn attention from forces he does not understand, forces that may already be moving around him. He exits the building, the night air colder than before, and begins walking back toward the barracks. Every sound seems amplified: the crunch of gravel, the rustle of the wind, the distant hum of generators. He reaches the steps leading to the barracks door, but pauses when he sees a figure standing at the far end of the walkway, not moving, not breathing from what he can tell. He squints, trying to make out the face, but the figure steps back into the shadows and disappears by the time Carter enters the barracks. He knows one thing with certainty: Hale is no ordinary recruit, and whatever group she belongs to does not forgive easily. He lies awake on his bunk, staring at the ceiling, unable to shake the feeling that the quiet woman he struck in the mess hall has begun a chain of events that will not stop until something far larger than him unfolds across the base. He closes his eyes, but the fear does not fade, only the cold truth settles in. He has crossed the path of someone who lives in the depths of the military secrecy, someone whose silence speaks louder than any words ever could. The summons arrives at dawn, catching Carter before he can fully rise from his bunk. A runner appears at the doorway, breathless and tight-lipped, instructing him to report immediately to the secure briefing wing. Carter feels the weight of the order settle on his shoulders as he follows the narrow path toward the restricted sector. The morning air is sharp, the sky gray and low, as though the world itself anticipates what is coming inside the briefing wing. The walls seem thicker than memories suggests, lined with reinforced panels and faint humming from unseen machinery. Carter is guided down a long hallway where two officers stand waiting. Their eyes track him with the same unreadable focus he saw last night in the shadowed figures. Without a word, they usher him into a dim room, lit only by a single overhead fixture. A table stands in the center, and on it rests a small closed folder with no markings. Carter sits when instructed. Though every muscle in his body is wound tight, the senior commander, a man known for his cold discipline, begins to ask questions about questions that feel oddly precise. He asks when Carter first noticed her behavior, when she seemed different, what she said or did in the days leading up to the incident. Carter answers carefully, aware that every word is being weighed, measured, and filed away. The officers exchange glances that reveal nothing, their expressions carved from stone. When the questions end, the commander tells Carter that Hale has not checked into any station on base since the previous night. She appears to have vanished without clearance or record. The tone suggests the situation is not merely a breach of protocol, but an event with implications beyond Carter's clearance level. The commander leans forward, his voice low, as he tells Carter that the program Hale belongs to predates most units on the base, and that its members operate under conditions unknown to standard recruits. Carter feels a chill move through him as he listens. The officers seem less concerned with Hallie herself and more with the trigger that activated her disappearance. Carter realizes slowly that the trigger may have been him and the moment. In the mess hall, his thoughts swirl, but he remains silent, sensing that any expression of fear might be taken as a liability when he is dismissed. Carter steps back into the hallway, his pulse hammering louder than his footsteps. The corridor lights flicker momentarily and a wave of instinctive dread runs through him. He waits for the humming to steady before moving on. Eventually, he steps outside where the wind cuts across the yard in sharp currents. The base looks the same, yet feels different, as though every shadow watches him from the corner of its eye. As Carter heads toward the barracks, a shape detaches itself from the far wall. Hale stands before him, calm and still. As she was in the mess hall, her presence feels unreal, the air around her charged with a cold intensity that makes the hairs on Carter's arms rise. She says his name once in a steady tone that demands attention. He turns toward her, unable to look away. She tells him that the program she belongs to activates only under extreme circumstances, and that his actions tested her restraint and her purpose. She steps closer, and Carter struggles to breathe beneath the weight of her gaze. She explains that the program monitors intronic conflict and intervenes only when a recruit shows potential to cross a boundary that endangers the mission of the entire base. He wants to respond, but no words form. Hal continues saying that she has already filed the necessary report and that the outcome of that report will determine the next phase of Carter's career. Then, without another word, Hallie moves past him toward an unmarked transport vehicle idling at the edge of the lot. The doors open silently and she climbs inside the vehicle, pulls away. With no headlights, its shape swallowed by the early morning haze, Carter stands motionless, watching as it disappears. He feels the weight of uncertainty settle deeper within him as the wind carries the last trace of the moment away. When he returns to the administrative wing, the commander waits at the door. His face is unreadable as he informs Carter that he is now bound by absolute silence regarding anything involving Hale or her program. Failure to comply will result in reassignment to a remote post where his name will fade into obscurity. The message is clear and final. Carter nods, though a storm churns inside him. As he walks away, he knows life on the base will never feel the same again, and that the shadow of Hale and her hidden world will follow him long after the day ends.